some people joining us, but I think it's 1:02 p.m. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining us today to our Youth Voices in Road Safety webinar. We're going to be profiling three awesome young changemakers who are focused on making our roads safer and improving safe mobility in Canada. For those of you who don't know, I'm Val Smith, and I'm the Director of Road Safety at Parachute Canada. And before we begin, I just want to take a moment to recognize that while we meet today on a virtual platform, we encourage everyone to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands, which we each call home. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations who call this land home. A reminder that all questions should be put into the question and answer, and we will allow some time at the end for questions. And we are also recording this, so for any folks who want to share the presentation afterwards, you will have an opportunity. At this time, I will ask for our Associate Deputy Minister, Brigitte, to turn her camera and audio on. Thank you. We're very honored to welcome Associate Deputy Minister of Transport Canada, Brigitte Diogo, to deliver our opening remarks. Some of you may have seen her previously on some of our webinars. She's been an unwavering champion of Parachute's work, especially with youth and with young changemakers. Time and time again, she's gone above and beyond to meet with young people, to listen to their ideas, and to personally encourage their passion for road safety and safe mobility. Brigitte, your leadership and genuine commitment to engaging the next generation it's very meaningful to us, and we truly thank you for joining us. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Brigitte, for opening remarks, and then we'll introduce our moderator and speaker.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. It's an honor to be among you today, and very thank you for inviting me to do opening remarks. And I wish I could stay longer and attend the entire event, but I would definitely look for the recording because I want to hear about the projects more in detail. And I think youth leadership is really important as we discuss road safety, and any of the mandates we have in Transport Canada. The transportation system, safety and security is core to what we do, and the input and the participation of youth is really important for us. So before I say anything further, I would really like to express my sincere appreciation for Parachute for organizing this event. The work of Parachute is one that I have admired for a long time. During my first time at Transport Canada, while I'm the current Associate Deputy Minister, I used to work here as Director General of Rail Safety, and that's when I became aware of the work that Parachute was doing. So your ongoing commitment to empowering youth people to take active role in preventing injuries and saving lives is invaluable. I also want to recognize our young panelists today, Alex, Aiden, and Wilhelmina, for their leadership and dedication. And thank you as well to Desjardins for sponsoring the event and having been, from what I understand, a long-time partnership on this important topic. As a youth, your voices, your energy, your innovative thinking are exactly what we need to continue to move ahead on road safety. And I think it's a let's say I want to say a selfish wish of mine to continue to tap into your ideas, your insight, wherever I go in the public service, because I think you bring a very important perspective on things that we need to listen to. I would say that in the last few months since I came back to Transport Canada, I have if there's one area that I spend more time on and have a lot of passion for is road safety. And I know it's not something that we can work on alone. It requires partnership of many of us to make it happen. So it is a core element of the department's mandate, and your input really strengthen our ability to achieve meaningful progress. So anything I can continue to do to support you, I will be happy to do that. So a safer and more robust, safer and more inclusive roads is not something that we can do alone. So we work very closely, as you know, with other levels of government, municipalities, provinces and territories, and civil society. And so Parachute and others, and you yourself are key to the dialogue. I think it's the leadership that and the passion that you have all shown to date on this issue is one that I'm very impressed with, and I thank you for your involvement. Whether you are a community leader, a researcher, it's really important that we continue to engage. So as youth, you are not just young or future road users. You are critical partners in shaping transportation policies and practices, and how we make them better. Your voices are essential in advancing road safety, because they help us design policies and practices that reflect lived experiences. Your insight into how people actually move, communicate, interact with technology is one that we benefit from and will continue to benefit from. So very much interested, not just me, but others in the department to look at the research and the practices that you are bringing forward. But we also welcome your feedback in what you see in our policies, in our regulations, whether things that we have in place that are working well, where we have gaps, what we can do further to achieve our common objective to reduce accidents and injuries. We are open to the dialogue. So as the next generation of road and vehicle users, your perspectives is vital as we might enter unprecedented times. Cars that we see on the roads now are like computers, right? In terms of how they are built, how they are designed, the fact that we see more and more automated driving systems and technologies on the roads. It brings in all kind of new risks that we need to address. So I am also aware that a growing number of manufacturers across the globe have introduced standards that are posing challenges and ensuring consistency in our understanding of that, not just within Canada, but with other partners across the globe is important. And one issue that we are paying a lot of attention to is cybersecurity, data protection, and so the department is really focusing on some of those issues currently, understanding what are the risks, what's behind the softwares, what are the software doing, what are the software collecting as data. And so we are really trying to understand the threat environment. So we are doing as well research on human behaviors, and as the technology evolved, such as issues of distraction, blind spots, and safe interactions with advanced driver assistance systems. So we saw a demonstration of that and had a discussion of that when I was at the 2025 CARS conference in Quebec City. And before that, when I met with some of you at the Global Ministerial Conference on road safety. So we are committed to continuing the dialogue. When we are not knocking on your door, we encourage you to knock on our doors. So I look forward to continuing to engage with you to advance road safety. I wish you a very successful and meaningful conversation today. And again, thank you to Parachute for organizing the event and for inviting me today. So, merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Merci to you. Thank you very much, Associate Deputy Minister. Benaaz and our three presenters, can I please ask you to turn on your cameras? And I am going to do very quick introductions. We are excited to have Benaaz Aronis here. She's the Senior Vice President for Desjardins, Agent Network and Direct Insurance. Within her role, she's responsible for growth strategy, performance, and business development for personal lines across Ontario, Atlantic, and Western regions. She's held a number of senior leadership positions and is very well known for giving back to the community. And she has also served on the United Way cabinet for many years. And she will be our moderator today. I'd also really quickly like to introduce our three panelists. You'll learn lots more about them as we go on. Our first panelist is Alex. Alex is a dedicated fourth-year forensic science student at Trent with a passion for cycling. And he's also a Parachute Youth Ambassador. Congrats, Alex. I know you were recognized as the recipient for a 2025 Parachute Youth Changemaker Award. Aiden is a student at Seneca Polytechnic and a member of Parachute's Canadian Youth Road Safety Council. He's consulted with UNICEF, City of Toronto Youth Council, and the United Nations to share his experiences interacting with Canadian youth. And last but not least, Wilhelmina. She is a first-year civil engineering student with Lassonde Engineering at York University and a graduate of our City of Vaughan Transportation Youth Ambassador Program. Welcome to you all and enjoy your discussion. I will pass this over to you, Benaaz.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Brigitte, for your insightful comments. And welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be moderating today's discussion on youth voices in road safety. I know across Canada, young leaders are driving meaningful change through advocacy, innovation, collaboration to make our roads safer and more inclusive. And today we'll hear from three inspiring young advocates and change makers who are leading the way in their communities. So welcome, Alex, Aiden, Wilhelmina. And to start with, because I'm curious, I want to know, why is advancing road safety personally important to you? And what drives your passion for this work? So maybe, Wilhelmina, let's start with you.
Sorry. Well, I have a lot of personal experience with road safety, as I'm sure we all do, but when I was first in grade 9, that was my transition from taking the school bus every single day to being able to take public transit. And when I was a young kid and taking the buses in the early morning, in the middle of winter, dead black, I encountered a lot of issues, from the scheduling of buses to crossing the road safely when it hasn't been properly cleared of snow, to all sorts of different things that I had to deal with. So I did a bit of a trial by fire that way, and it got me really, really interested in road safety and public transit, which is what I'm hoping to base my career around as I move forward into adulthood. So I'm very excited to make any difference I can, especially in my hometown of Vaughan.
Thank you. Alex?
I'd say road safety matters to me, and as a cyclist, I've been cycling since 2014 competitively and recreationally, and being on a bike is just it's like my personality. It's how I get around. It's how I've sustained myself for years upon years, and interacting with roads and trails in that environment personally, being on a bike, I guess that's probably my main driver for being passionate about road safety. But as I transition to a coach, and especially a youth coach, where I'm not only concerned about my own safety, but also cognizant of other safety, especially youth, that's where I identify gaps in some of the infrastructure around where we do programming and that kind of stuff. So I was motivated to make a difference in that environment for the safety of everyone around me.
Thank you. And Aiden?
Yeah, like for me, I've been driving since I was 16 years old, and just going on the road is always an experience, right? You always have to be mindful of like your surroundings, and I really wanted to make sure that everyone was safe, right? Whether it's the passengers that I'm driving, the pedestrians that I see interacting like on the road, and that's something I really wanted to make a difference because I've seen people get in accidents, friends, families, and I really wanted to be the person that maybe makes that difference because sometimes it is hard, like getting your voice out there. But being part of like the Parachutes Youth Council for Road Safety is really like being a big impact on my life, just by giving my ideas and how we can improve road safety in Canada. So yeah, it's really important that way for me.
Oh, I feel your passion, and it's great because now let's dig into all the things you've done. And maybe, Alex, let's start with you because I see here that you worked on the project with the Dundas Value Conservation Area. So walk us through your project and what made it take the lead on this one, and what did you learn from the data?
So I guess to start, I can put into context sort of the issue that we were facing, because when we talked to a lot of people, they thought the idea was pretty niche, or they weren't really uh, considering that perspective. But I guess I've been a youth cycling coach since 2019, and we use the Dundas Valley Conservation Area trails for programming. I've used it hundreds of times for training, racing, and group rides with youth. And I've had parents come to me and tell me that they are beyond ecstatic that their kids have taken up mountain biking as a sport. It's a way for them to get healthy, good for their mental health, but they're also off the roads where cars are. And they sort of perceive that as they're not as in danger being in the trails as they're on the roads with traffic and whatnot. But a lot of people fail to consider the, I guess, literal and metaphorical intersection of these trails with roads and the danger that comes with that. People often associate these recreational trails as like an escape from the busy streets and the dangers associated with them. But in the Dundas Valley Conservation Area, this often is further from the truth. Trail entrances are obscured from drivers' vision until the last minute, and wide paved roads intersect trails and promote fast driving speeds, and a lack of warning signs also don't help to the issue. So it leaves a lot of these trail intersections pretty vulnerable and unprotected. And personally, as a someone who's used these trail systems for a long time, you get to know the area, you're familiar with it, you know how to be smart, when to stop, where to be careful. The onus is really on you. But like I had said earlier, as I became a cycling coach and I'm now looking after 10 to 15 youth along with me, you become a lot more concerned about their safety. And that's where I identify gaps in the infrastructure in these trail crossings. So that was basically the motivation for our projects. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Let's go over, Aiden, to you for a minute, because I see here your Snap for Change project successfully improved pedestrian safety near an elementary school. So can you describe the issue you identified? I mean, you took the steps to address it, and what did you learn along the way?
Yeah, so good question. So in my local neighborhood, right across the street from an elementary school, I noticed as they were building this elementary school, they made the sidewalk more narrow. So this posed a real challenge for people that were making turns onto the street because it's almost like only one car can turn at a time. And it made it really challenging because I saw like almost collisions happen just because the cars are so close to each other. In winter, it was very like slippery because it was right at the bottom of a hill. So it was cars were like speeding down the hill, trying to turn, and it was really posed a danger in the community. So this is where like a lot of the community members walking their pets, people bike, run, and there was just a lot of like interaction in that area. So I noticed that being a problem like for a couple months now, and because of Parachute Snap for Change project, I really wanted to take action on that. So I wrote a letter. I wrote an in-depth letter to the mayor of Toronto, letting them know like this is a safety issue, right? And I also heard it from community members too. It's not only myself; all community members like felt the same way. And I reached out to the mayor's office, included pictures in detail of what were like happening in that intersection. So they got back to me like probably within a week, which was a really good response time, letting them know that they're going to forward this to my local city councilor. So that's what they did. They sent it over to the city councilor, and I even got a response from that pretty quick, letting me know that they're going to send investigators out to the scene of the intersection to take a further look into this. So that was something that was, really helpful. We went back and forth in a couple of email chains just explaining like, how this affects the local community. And in a couple of weeks, I would say, they emailed me back saying they were going to add a stop sign. So that was just amazing that one email, couple emails, pictures, a little in-depth details can make such a difference. Not only to mention that, like at the bottom of that hill, before there was a speed camera. So that speed camera used to always prevent speeders from going past that elementary school. But since they removed the speed camera, that also poses, a bigger challenge now that cars might be speeding again. But now because of that stop sign, there's no speeding, people are slowing down right in front of the elementary school. So it's definitely made like a big impact, that I feel because of this.
Wow, Aiden. And elementary school, we've got kids who go there. I really am inspired by the fact that you took the time to send that email. It started with that one email and you got the action. So kudos to you on that, Aiden. And I'm sure the parents are thrilled to have someone like you out there advocating for them. So good for you. Philomena, over to you. I see here that you've led several road safety and mobility projects in collaboration with the City of Vaughan. So give us an overview of those initiatives, and you have been motivated to join the Transportation Youth Ambassador Program. So tell us more about that too.
So the Transportation Youth Ambassador Program, it was a fantastic program that was put on last year and I believe is picking up for its next semester this year currently with the City of Vaughan. So it was wonderful. They had me learning from city officials there, planners, infrastructure, and publicity. So I got the opportunity to do 3 initiatives. My first was that I went to my high school's civics and careers class, which, if you're unfamiliar, that's a required class in grade 10 around the way government is constructed. So one of the projects is that these kids are often required to draft a letter to a local representative about an issue in their area. So I took the time to go to each of the classes in my school and speak about the Snap for Change problems and how government is orchestrated within Vaughan and the region of York so that students are more familiar and more able to advocate for themselves and their communities. After that, I orchestrated it was half information night, half fact-finding mission alongside YRT, which is the York Region Transportation, around mobility and accessibility on their transportation. This was inspired by my core teacher who works with the special needs kids at my school, who expressed that her kids had some problems working out how to use transit and just an overall fear that was preventing people from beginning. So I hosted this night. We had people from YRT come down and give an explanation because I figured they would be able to do it more justice than I could, and provide explanations about transit training, which is where we actually could have people go to anyone who requests at their house and take them through the process of going to a couple local destinations. So I'd like to hope that I could make some change there. And then finally, I did my Snap for Change, which was to mess with the transit signals at a local intersection of mine, where unfortunately cars often make left turns a little too aggressively. And we actually did have report that there was an accident with a pedestrian fairly recently, which was incredibly unfortunate to hear, especially so close to my home. And I do hope that person's okay, but that was an effort to hopefully do some traffic calming in the area and prevent aggressive driving.
Wilhelmina, let me tell you, coming from the insurance industry, we truly appreciate all that you're doing around road safety, because as I hear you truly care about, the left turns and trying to avoid accidents, it's true. This truly has a positive impact on people's lives. So thank you so much for what you're doing on that front. Alex, I'm going to go off to you now. I know that you collaborated with your peers on the Golden Horseshoe Cycling Hub and a local city councillor. What strategies helped you build those partnerships? Because it's interesting that you've gone out there and you've reached out to them, and together, right? It's not, you've brought them all together to make a difference. So let's talk more about that, and how did that strengthen your advocacy?
So I'd start off by saying I definitely had a foot in the door being a coach at the cycling club. But being able to partner with them, they had a connection with the local city councillor. So another foot in the door already. So we were pretty fortunate with that. But I think having that, like the partner organization of the cycling club behind my motivation really gave me that credibility that I might not have had if I just had approached the city councillor myself. And yeah, I mean, collaborating with both the city councillor and the cycling club really was instrumental in designing, refining, and carrying out all aspects of the project. We were pretty fortunate that the local councillor that we collaborated with was really passionate about multi-use roads and transportation spaces, and was already pretty well versed in projects to improve safety of those spaces. And that really realigned our goals when we were looking at what we wanted to accomplish with the project. We were coming at it from a perspective of, we really wanted to push education to these, make the education accessible to all age groups, and then increase the amount of signage around these problem areas that we had identified. And then after collaborating with the city councillor, chatting with them and getting more professional and experienced insight, we sort of refined that approach to adopt a more long-lasting physical barrier type approach, where we refine the project to include other aspects. So that was really helpful in that. And partnering with the cycling club allowed us access to resources such as emailing lists. We were able to send out our survey to gather research to an already pretty engaged audience, and also funding and connections with printing for our educational material. So it was helpful in that aspect.
So Alex, what I'm hearing from you is when you bring all the different partners together, they also brought together some of their strengths to the discussion and to the educational piece, which is great. And Aidan, on your end, you've worked with organizations, from on a municipal as well, when I look at international levels. So what have you learned about communicating your perspective to decision makers in a way that leads to action? Because clearly you've got things changed.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you really don't be afraid to speak up if you're passionate about something. Like all the organizations that I worked with, I was really passionate about getting involved with, especially like Parachute with their road safety work. And you got to speak your own opinion, voice what your concerns are. And I think people are there to listen, especially if it's coming from a youth perspective. So that's one thing like I noticed like over the years that I've been doing this. Just be proactive if there is an issue, maybe it's in your community. Don't be afraid to bring it up, whether it's at the local government, provincial, federal. Make sure you voice what you have to say, because I think one email, like what I did with that stop sign, it did make a difference, right? So you never know like how the outcome is going to be if you don't try. So that's one thing I would say that's really important. And also, it's thanks to like the great works of like Parachute, Desjardins, Honda, all these supporters that are here to support youth in making a difference in the future.
Thank you, Aidan. And Wilhelmina, let's look at the fact when you share your story, I think about how you got your other students engaged, right? Your peer group engaged and mobilized, and you got them to care about the issue and to take action. So what would your perspective be on that?
Well, I will say it was definitely a move to have a sort of captive audience in the form of grade 10 civics classes, because when you go into someone's classroom, they do have to sit there and listen to you speak. Though I will say it was really interesting to see how students who normally, I think, were a little upset to have a guest speaker in their class, and then see them open up and brighten up and have a really interesting conversations about how kids get to school every day, and maybe they're not considering, oh, my mom drives me to school, people walk. So it's really cool to see how people form these new connections in their mind. And I do really hope that students afterwards took the opportunity to maybe fill out a snapper change or maybe join this year's cohort of the Transportation Youth Ambassador Program. And it was also very interesting in my program to work alongside other youth from other schools who were making change in their own ways. So I learned a lot from those I was working with, those I was working for. And again, it was extremely helpful to have the backing of the City of Vaughan and YRT and my school board, and to just see what I could do with the support and see how many people I could reach.
Thank you, Wilhelmina. And I know that each one of you are very grateful to all the organizations that have supported you. But what I clearly hear is you still were the ones to drive the action. And then you pulled in the people you needed to support to bring in the change. So before I ask Valerie to come back to see what other questions everybody might have, I wanted to throw one out at you because, we all see things that need to be improved at some point, but then people think, oh, it's going to be somebody else who's going to do it. Do I have the power to bring in the change? And I truly, when I listen to you, I feel like the change starts with you. You can make that change. So what advice would you give someone like yourself who's out there, who sees something, but are afraid to maybe, am I really going to make the difference? Or am I, what if nobody actually listens to me? So what piece of advice would you like to give them? Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just reiterate what I said is like, try, like, don't be afraid to like reach out to whoever you need to reach out to get that information across, because you never know like what can make a difference, right? So I think, the important thing is like try and just see where it goes.
I would say too that especially like just try. You'll never know what happens unless you try. And then also when you're reaching out to people, it can be so important to find an actual real person to communicate to. Maybe that means instead of an email, maybe that means getting on the phone or going down to your local office and speaking to a person there. Putting a face to a problem, I think especially helps things out a lot more than just putting something into a Q&A form or a problem form, but any action is some action, and I think small steps are always the beginning. So
thank you. Alex, do you have anything you want to add?
I might add, everyone's got their own interests, everyone's got their own hobbies. I feel like there's always some sort of opportunity to improve safety in everyone's individual lives, whether it be on a large scale or small scale. So uh, take what you love and then make change with that.
Thank you. And I'm sure our listeners have a lot of questions based on what you've shared already. So, Valerie, I'm going to hand it over to you. Do we have questions for the group?
We do. We have a few questions, and then I've received a text with a few questions as well. So thank you. Really, really great to hear more about these projects. Before we jump into our questions coming from the audience, I just want to take a minute and because I know I looked at who's listening. I looked at our audience today, and we have quite a few people from representing other organizations working in road safety. We have some folks from municipalities. Um, from each of you, how do we do a better job to engage you? And I don't mean to make you the recipient of our programs or the recipients of our information. How do adults, practitioners working in this space, whether they're working in road safety or social justice issues, what is one thing you can tell us that we can do better to get you more involved and so you actually feel like you're truly engaged? So Wilhelmina, let's start with you.
Well, again, I think back to all the times in school we were gathered up in an assembly to hear a talk, and I'd say out of all of the times across my educational career, the one thing I can remember most concretely about road safety was an assembly we attended in which a guy stood up and for an hour showed us a video about car crashes. And I remember he didn't say much, but just the fact that I was sitting there watching it occur and hearing just a couple tips, like maybe stand a little further back when you're crossing the street, or always make sure you never bend down when you're driving. And I remember that stuck with me above all else because I know I heard so many presentations given, but to see an impact and to see it head on, face on, instead of just having a handout about percentages, I remember that's really what stuck with me most.
Amazing answer and a good reminder for many of us who do presentations that we have to bring it into context and we have to do a better job to work with our audience rather than just present to. Thank you. Aidan, your answer, maybe you can touch slightly on the Snap for Change initiative as well and how that might have factored into the ways we engage with groups of young people.
Yeah, like I think that's a really amazing initiative that Parachute has going on right now because like that information will go directly to a road safety organization, right? So all my like I had a couple of friends that submitted it and it just goes directly there. So you know the information is getting to the right people. I think that's really important too and also forming like different youth councils, right? I've been a part of a couple with my city, my local ward. I think that's a really great way to get information across because we're giving like a youth perspective directly to the local government, whether it's councilors, the mayor's office, anything like that is going directly from us to the leadership. So I think that's a really good way to like engage with youth because that's like direct communication.
Amazing. Thank you. And Alex.
I say just for organizations to be genuinely curious about issues that youth face. I mean, we interact with life, not just roadways, but in different ways. So, empowering us to take on projects where we're celebrated for the work that we accomplish. We're not told something to do, offered skill building support. But really, at the end of the day, the project is our passion, and that should be highlighted and focused on as a motivator to better engage youth, I think.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm just going to share a short personal story. I was in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, a few weeks ago for a workshop we did in hand with the Ecology Action Center and the municipality. Fantastic initiative. They had some really amazing young people who were doing great work there. Their activities were profiled during the workshop. at the end, one of the coordinators had organized for two of these young leaders to do the full debrief with 40 plus people. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, and I wanted to get in there and try to manage things a little bit and make sure they had their ducks in a row. And I didn't. I really stepped back and I let them do their thing. And I was blown away by how fantastic they were. I could not have done it anywhere near to the depth and legitimacy they had in their discussions with this big group of adults. So that would be a good tip I would share just as a personal story anecdote is trust that young people can really do a better job than a lot of people, like who have been working in the field for years. So thank you for those answers. I will go to our questions now. So we have a question from Samuel, and I've seen some of Samuel's work as an advocate in road safety. He does a lot of social media. His question's very specific, but maybe we can break it down a little bit to make it more general. He writes, considering the large number of African international students and newcomers in Canada, and the influence the African road safety content creators and advocates like himself have, how can Canadian road safety organizations better advocate or better integrate advocates like him who have a direct channel and cultural connection to a demographic, via road safety? So you may not be able to answer that specifically to a African and newcomer community, but in the work you guys are doing, do you have any ideas on how we can bring in young advocates who might have strong connections to cultural and groups or specific groups with different demographics? Just raise your hand if you want to take a stab at that one. Okay, Wilhelmina.
Well, I unfortunately don't have much experience in that specific field. I would like to preface all I say by that. But I think there really does need to be a lot of intentionality in hiring and who you message towards, and making sure that your team itself is diverse. And I've been doing a lot of classes in my first year engineering, and a lot has been focused on proper communication and proper problem solving. And it's even been suggested to us, when you're making a team for a project, don't have it all be civil engineers. Make sure you have a couple different voices in there. Make sure it's not all people from Woodbridge, because then you're losing some information otherwise. And in my projects that I've done recently, I've really seen how ideas can be stunted when you don't have ideas from other places. I had a problem recently with a project regarding windmills, and we couldn't come to a conclusion because we didn't have any computer engineers on our team, only civil. So it's really so important, as I'm finding out, to just absolutely make sure that you can have your team be as diverse and as knowledgeable across platforms as possible. And in this case, I'm sure it's incredibly important to hear the perspective of our African community members in road safety.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, like just to add on to that, I think it's definitely important to have a diverse background for whatever, organization you're giving advice to. Like for example, like on our Youth Road Safety Council with Parachute, we have people from all across Canada. We have people that live in rural communities, people that live in the big city, and it really gives a different perspective on all the issues that we talk about because everyone's coming from a different area, and I think that's really important for giving people's different perspectives on things.
And Samuel, I will invite you to reach out to Parachute again. And I think the Snap for Change initiative is a really good way to perhaps involve other young people. And as an advocate, it's a really great initiative for you to bring to your community, because it allows people that are interested in a specific road safety or mobility issue to identify it, to take a photo or video of it, and then advocate around it. And we help with the storytelling behind it. And we're finding it's a really, really impactful way to engage not only young people, but community members. Okay, I'll take it to our next question. Yeah, and I think this is a really great question for your demographic. We know how important social and digital media is. And it can be a really great tool. It can be a challenging tool as well as AI. How would you, or you can either maybe describe a story or how you use social media in the work you're doing, and how does it support the work you're doing, or maybe deter the work you're doing? So maybe I'll start with you, Alex.
For sure. For my project, we use social media primarily for promoting our research survey to collect people's insights on the issue that we had identified, to see if it corroborated what we already thought. We use social media in the form of posts, stories, and emails, if that would be considered. Other than that, with the education piece of our sort of deliverables for our project, we tended to stick to physical media. So we made infographics, and we felt like that would have greater, maybe not outreach, but more meaningful impact than just maybe posting a story or a post of the infographic that we had created.
Excellent. That's a great example. Thank you. Aidan, do you have anything to share in that space?
Like for my project, I didn't use like any social media, but just overall, it is a great way to engage with youth. I think that's, really important to get like messages across. Especially nowadays, there's always something like online that is trending, and it's a quick and easy way to interact with youth as well. So whether that's like an Instagram reel, TikTok, anything like that, it's get the message across pretty accurately to youth.
Thank you. And Wilhelmina?
So I will say there was a funny moment in my training with the city of Vaughan in which our presenters were going on about a new addition to their website and how it's so good that you can just look at this here. And then at one point, the presenter stopped and actually spoke to all of us sitting there and was like, "How many of you have been on this part of the website before?" And we all looked to each other. And I had never, ever even known that the city of Vaughan had a transportation page. And I think everyone there was kind of baffled that we didn't know about this. And I think it speaks to making sure that your audience actually does use the platforms that you are looking to use, because I think it's important to have web pages up, databases up. But when you want to publicize something, maybe it's best done through social media. And I think social media is such an important tool. Just this morning, I was discussing with a friend, if you've ever seen the fantasy TTC maps, and on Reddit, it's a big thing. They'll just design, oh, I wish a new subway line would go here. And it's a flourishing community. So I think that just being very intentional in the way that you use social media and ensuring you're definitely reaching the correct audience is so important.
Thank you. And I'll just ask if there's anyone that doesn't have their audio off to turn it off, getting a little background noise. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to pass it back to Benaaz to close up with one final question for you guys. The question is, did you face, and it could be through this project you did or other projects, any major obstacles where you became disheartened, you became frustrated, you weren't getting the answers you wanted, things were moving slowly, and how did you overcome this, and what advice might you give other young people? And I know, Aidan, with some of your work directly advocating with government and so forth, that can be tricky, and it can take, there's a lot of loopholes and a lot of bureaucracy. So maybe I'll start with you on that question. Just let us know kind of how you stayed resilient in your efforts.
Yeah, that is a good question. There is definitely some challenges. But I guess one thing that I noticed, like, as I was doing all of this, is sometimes you just have to wait, right? The governments, any like counselors you email, they are very busy people, but I think at the end of the day, the majority, they will get back to you, right? I think that's a really important factor because, for young people, they expect things right away, but like in reality, it doesn't really happen that way. It's going to take time. They're going to work to like try to resolve an issue, get you a proper response. So I think that's something is really important. Don't lose hope if you don't hear back right away. I think some things might just take time to work out.
Yeah, we often say at Parachute, nothing is really a quick win. We sometimes think we're going to get a quick win, and it often isn't. So thank you. And over to you, Alex.
I would say the main obstacle was just time or lack thereof, finding time between class and other volunteer opportunities and extracurriculars to just find time to work on the project, working with a co-ambassador also. So just scheduling meetings, that kind of stuff, staying on the same schedule. But having open and active communication was probably the best thing there. Just setting aside time to work on the project. That was really helpful.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Time is really valuable, and so that's what also makes some of the work you guys doing commendable because um, we know that everyone is pressed for time. And Wilhelmina, over to you.
I'd say the biggest thing was staying motivated, even when people aren't necessarily engaging as much. Like for my information, I was expecting large turnout, and we actually only had about two people who weren't teachers of mine coming to attend, which was unfortunate. But there was a mom of a student who was hoping to use transit to get to school next year. And she was given one-on-one explanations by YRT, and she learned a lot. And we gave her maps and we gave her Timbits. And I also got to help my core teacher and integrating YRT into the co-op training at my school. So even though we maybe only helped a couple people, actually being able to see that I helped someone was, I think, my biggest reward at the end of all of this. So that is what kept me going.
Yeah, quality over quantity, right? If you do a few good things and impact a few people, you can make big changes without having a massive number of people attend your events. Okay, so I see some hands raised here, but we are going back to Benaaz to wrap up, and I would just ask anyone else to put your questions in the chat, and if oh, here, wait, we've got one more question, Benaaz. I'll get this answered and then we'll get you to wrap up. Many young people know road safety like seat belts is important, but peer pressure or a sense of invincibility keeps them from acting. What strategies would you say would be the most effective in shifting that mindset from resistance to action? So again, just to sum that question up, young people, and I would say adults as well, often know that they might be taking part in behaviors that could be risking their lives. But because of peer pressure or because we think we're invincible, mostly more so young people, they don't do it. So quickly, if each of you just want to give your personal, because I'm sure that's an anecdotal, everyone has a anecdote about that, growing up with peer pressure. If you just want to share one perspective or your thoughts on that, I'd appreciate it. And I'll start with you, Alex.
I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on that exactly, but I guess from paralleling it to my project, I guess, part of the issue with that we had identified was behavioral changes or procedural changes alone, especially so when you're in a big group with a lot of youth, like telling them to get off their bike, telling them to walk across in a single file line. It can only go so far. A lot of this stuff is up to physical barriers or unfortunately lived experience to actually make that conscious decision to be safer. So I'm not sure how that could be implemented. Obviously, you don't want people to get into car crashes, but just sort of shifting from telling people what to do, education, to actually making a more meaningful sort of impact on them.
Thank you. And Aiden or Wilhelmina, comments?
Oh, yeah, I guess I can give one. So like I used to go biking like a lot with me and my other friend. And back in 2023, I had a bad bicycle accident and actually broke both of my hands. Luckily, they are recovered now. But during that accident, like, I was in hospital. I took like about 4 to 6 months to recover. And before that, my friend never used to wear a helmet. But I think after that experience, he was there with me when the accident happened. He saw like all the impacts, like I was okay, nothing happened to my head because I wore a helmet. And then since that day, now he bikes all the time with a helmet. So I think sometimes like life experiences, what you hear like in the news, they make a difference, right? Because they sometimes you get scared into like, doing the right thing. And especially with youth, because sometimes they need to hear that like from a real perspective. But yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and Wilhelmina, we'll wrap up with your question or your answer.
I actually would have said the exact same thing. I know that when I first started driving just last year, I sometimes would unfortunately have to drive on a little like too less sleep because I had early shifts in the mornings. And I remember getting in a very close call after coming back from work, after getting only 5 hours of sleep. And that really freaked me out. So I would say definitely, unfortunately, one of the most effective ways is to just scare kids into doing the right thing. And obviously you can't systematically put kids into car crashes. But I think showing people what the potential dangers are and showing them what kind of powers preventative measures can give gives people a sense of autonomy, and that may be one of the most effective ways.
Thank you. Benaaz, I'm going to pass it back to you just for any final comments, anything you want to wrap up with. But from my perspective, thank you, everyone. Really great. And over to you, Benaaz.
Thank you, Valerie. First, thank you so much for this incredible session. We have learned so much. We've learned that, when you see something and you truly want to make a change, go for it. So you're inspiring all of us to make that change. So thank you for that. Road safety being an important one and close to our heart. We want to prevent any kind of tragedy. So it's in our hands to do so. But I want to say, what I'm walking away with, that the next generation is going to really move us forward. It's all of you as leaders and Canadians. All Canadians are in great hands, knowing that we have leaders like yourself thinking about the future and making real change that has an impact. And Valerie, for Parachute, thank you for creating the platform to have these kind of discussions and to, I would say, providing the platform also to put the leaders forward so that we know that small actions can lead to big changes. And at Desjardins, we are so supportive of all of this because this is what we do. We need to care for our community, care for Canadians everywhere. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I look forward to connect with you all in person sometime soon. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.